I'm not recording as much of the hotel towers today because I got so much to say, and I had so much to say the last time. But there was some stuff that I wanted to say, but simply I was overwhelmed. I was tired. I had to go home. But there was another issue, and I didn't know quite how to hashtag it. I didn't know quite how to label it. But it's what I call, watch, forgiveness, force, and free will, and contrasts and comparisons. That this was the other, it was supposed, I wanted 7, everything comes in sets of 3s or 7s. So I wanted to include this, but it wasn't happening. I guess I was so tired. And also, but another thing, and another move of God in my life, and that's what I want to focus on, was, and also if people were to ask me, and I'll get into that, and also to get into another situation where God was with me during the hard times, and also in situations that I was thrown out, in situations that I was set up, a lot of bizarre, ugly things. But I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on not just where was God, but where God was. It's a play on words. I'll get to that in a moment. And also I want to see if I can condense Rigoletto down in 2 minutes to make a short, because this is the closing week of Verdi's opera Rigoletto, which is based on forgiveness, which is playing at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion. So, but let's talk about this. This is what I wanted to say. It was what I call the question. Yeah, that was also a move of God in my life, and that's what I want to focus on. I'm trying to stay organized here. No clutter on the table. And also that's the influence of my ex-boss, Catherine, who had befriended me when I was working at the gift shop at John Wayne Airport from 03 to 09. And she would have kept me forever if the economy hadn't been so messed up. But we did keep in touch. We lost touch over the years, but we did keep in touch. And also she follows me on Facebook also, and on YouTube. Catherine, if you're watching, 10 stars, and you're the best. And now you know what the colo is, and also everything wonderful exactly as God wanted it. And yeah, now you know that colo that was a tribute to you. Okay. But we'll talk about Catherine. We're not going to talk about Bruno. We're going to talk about Catherine. We're going to focus on what we want instead of what we don't want. The question. That's what I wanted to say, because that's where I feel that God had helped me. And this was to me also a move of God. No, I wasn't slain in the spirit. I didn't see angels. There was no earthquake. There was no tornado. There was no hurricane. It was just really, really peaceful. When God was dealing with me and saying, choose between one or the other, if you were to be prayed over and being slain in the spirit exactly the way you want it, and everything, hands being laid on, prayed over, and all of that, but you can only choose between one or the other. You can't have both. Choose between Carol or Catherine. And I was kind of caught by surprise, and nothing was going on. I was just chilling in my car and just relaxing, just daydreaming, doing nothing. And then I thought to myself, okay, I'm in a dilemma here, because I was friends with Carol, but Frank had torn us apart, and we were friends at one time, but then I had a better connection with Catherine because I feel Catherine was better able to reach me and to tear off that hard shell, she was able to tap into that emotional connection a little bit, but I'm going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And I'm hearing in my spirit, choose one or the other. That's all I kept hearing, choose. You can't have both. And then what came out of my mouth, I was pleasantly, I didn't even know what I would have said, because I had one of those, oh my God, I better get this right. What have I gotten myself into? And then I had said, with all that had happened and all the insanity and Frank and Torrance and being thrown out of the meeting and Costco and all of that slain with Carol, it was a different era back then, 40 years ago. That doesn't draw me as much as it used to with all that had happened. But I would choose Catherine for slain in spirit, and I would choose Carol for the conversation. Really, Carol, that's what I really had said. You're surprised to hear that? I'm so surprised. I didn't know what I was going to say. Then the next question, and that's where I cut myself off, because I wanted to, because I had to go home. My battery was dying, and also it was getting dark. But that was what I wanted to say. The second question is, then I heard in my spirit, woman, you just said you'd choose Catherine instead of Carol. So, woman, why are you so angry? Why are you tripping? I added that. Why are you so bent out of shape? I added that. Why are you tripping? Why are you so upset? What is this anger all about? Woman, why are you so angry? I just heard it in the form of a question. And then what I was saying, and in this dialogue was, and this is where it goes into free will, and I didn't know how to hashtag this, free will, force, and forgiveness. Because the contrast is still there. Okay, and I'm checking my forgiveness progress to see from a year ago, when I had started to turn over the situation with Frank, but still there's that residue. I can forgive someone for throwing dirt on the carpet, but there's still that residue after. There's still that smell. There's still that the dirt that is embedded. So that's something, if you were to ask me where I'm at, that's something that I'm trying to navigate in the area of forgiveness, is because, one moment, is that, and that's what I call force versus free will. Because the answer to that is, and that's the contrast. That's what I was trying to say the last time, where it was the contrast, because we see with Catherine, where we see that where she would come the presence of God, and there would be joy and laughter, that one moment I'd be able to laugh, the moment I would be able to break down crying, sometimes at the same time. When she didn't lay hands on, pray over me, but because she's taller than me, so she would get in my face. I fell a few times, but she was holding on to me, so I felt safe. But now that was not the traditional slain in the spirit, but that's what had worked for me, and also that had softened me, and also she was getting into my face, and so it overpowered me in the sense that it overwhelmed me, that it kind of overwhelmed me, but in a good, positive way, where I had gotten softer, where it had softened me, and where I'd find myself laughing. Sometime I remember when we had a customer service training meeting, it's like she would just look at me and I just practically fell. My head landed on the table, that I would break down laughing without even knowing why. And that laughter and that positive energy, that love and that peace that would draw me closer to God and motivate me to surrender and turn more of my heart and soul over to God. And so again, when I say overpowered me where it turned out good, where she was softening me, as opposed to where Frank would just stir up the pot, and the anger and the resentment, it would go on for hours and hours and hours. And where there's force, there's gonna be resentment. Because everything was, and then creating more anger and more resentment, and then also going to your meeting, Carol, and then to listen to that, where him forcing me to give it up. That's that theme that you've got to. That's that theme again. That Georgia Germont spirit, that force spirit. That with Catherine, there was no force, there was no scandal, there was no scenes. Nothing. I had the free will, and also none of this. Another situation with another prayer line that I shouldn't have been there in the first place, where it was designed to humiliate. It was designed, not the first one, but the second one, the one in Torrance. It was designed to humiliate, to hurt. That Stefka, I don't want you. I can't get you out of my prayer line, but I want you in the prayer line, so I'll just have you repeat some stuff, get rid of you, push you out of the way, and then go on to the next person. None of that happened with Catherine. Everything was handled honorably, even when she got into my face and overpowered me a few times. That everything was handled beautifully, and everything was handled right, and it made me soften. She never humiliated me. She never embarrassed me. There was none of this repeat after me. In fact, when I was so much in shock that I couldn't talk, it's like she was it was almost like, Stefka, you chill. You take it easy. You take it easy. And she had her hands on my face, and she helped me to get up. She didn't knock me down. I lost my balance when she would get into my face, but it softened me. It was a type of overpowering, which was for good, that softened me and made me kinder and made me gentler, as opposed to Frank, where he was stirring the pot and stirring the bitterness, and where Catherine had calmed me down. But Frank was stirring me up, stirring up the pot and the anger and and he even admitted it. You didn't want to hear it, Carol, when I was reaching out to you. When I was begging, you figured, oh, that's between the two of you. You didn't want to hear it. You were like a married couple having your clothes on the line so that every person in the neighborhood would want to hear it. That's what you said to me when I was reaching out to you. And also at Costco, we're not going to talk about that more than necessary, but related to Frank, it grieves me. I'm not mad. I'm not tripping. I'm cool. But it grieves me that every person at Costco at that time, your setup backfired, because every person at Costco who heard the story about Frank, everyone, they knew what I had gone through. They protected me. Costco was very, very good to me. And also God protected me when it was your setup. That evening, also looking back how many ways God had protected me there. And also that it grieves me that every person had known what I had gone through except you. And also where there was no free will. And Frank even admitted it. He even had said it, that the goal was to force me to give it up, to force me to. And what's the point of giving it up if it's just one of those, I'm standing on the inside. I'm sitting on the inside, but I'm standing on the outside. What's the point of that? If I'm not laying it down peacefully, if it's through force, through manipulation, through trauma, through drama, things that were spoken in the name of God, and I'll use the Georgia Germont metaphor, and then you got to give it up. You got to go for counseling. You got to go for deliverance. And where I didn't subscribe to it, that had its own issues and situations, and then I was the bad guy to you, I was Satan. Yeah, Carol, when people hear that story now, people are laughing now. No one takes that seriously, and Costco didn't take that seriously also. But that's the force, that's the manipulation. Where and also if and Andrew Wommack does a teaching about, and I can't go into all of that because I can't remember everything, but the way he said it, basically when Abraham laid down his Isaac, if he had not done it willingly, if it was, and I'm just using him as an example, if it had been, well, I have to give it up. I don't want to give it up, but I have to, but I'm being cornered. That would not go to his spiritual credit, so to speak, of him being a man of faith. So he had to do it willingly. And also, what's the point of being told that I need to give it up, and then all the anger and all the resentment, and then the unforgiveness, and then not going for counseling? And then why should I give it up? And then to you, I was Satan because I didn't want to go for counseling and deliverance. All of Costco laughed about that evening. Really, stuff happened, and I will get into, I promise, talking about going into the box to get the list of the 10 things I like about you. I don't have my props with me here. I have to do that at my house. But all of the things that I like about you, but everything, like I had said, okay, I'm getting a little bit trippy here. Yeah, everything was so cluttered, and everything because of all that had been going on. But going back to Catherine, where if you were to ask me, how would I compare? Yeah, I started to talk about this, but I had to leave, and it was getting late and everything. It was a different timing for a different era, where with August 10th, 85, it was a different situation as opposed to Catherine. And since you're into opera and me being into opera, you'll know what I'm talking about. You'll relate to this. We're not going to get into a Renata Tebalde Maria Callas debate over who's the better singer. That would be that was controversial back in the 60s and 70s. Personally, I prefer Roberta Peters. That was my favorite soprano of that era. And then I grew up more on the Beverly Hills generation, but it's more not so much what's better, it's more like what's better for me. And also to speak a kind word toward you, Carol, you're probably hearing this. You're probably saying, "Oh, thank God, she found someone else to bug that she's happier with and better connected, and she's leaving us alone." And everything amicable without Frank stirring up, and especially because I get riled up easily, and so where Catherine would calm me down, as opposed to Frank, which would stir up the pot and of the resentment for hours and hours and hours. The contrast is still there, where you see the good and the peace and the joy and the presence of God, and where I would soften, where I was overpowered. But on the other hand side, we see Frank that would create more of the hard-heartedness, the clenched fist, that instead of helping me to calm down and let's look at and being a peacemaker, and let's look at it from a different point of view, and let's look at it from this, Steph, I understand where you're coming from, but let's look at it from Carol's point of view, and talking in a more peaceful manner. He was just stirring things up and stirring up more rage and more anger. And I do need to take a break, and I'll be back in a few moments.